Okay, what is up there YouTube? This is J-Man Time, and today I have a video on a lesser known African navy from the time period of the Scramble for Africa in the 1860s through 1930s. And in this video we're going to go over the forgotten steam navy of the Kingdom of Morocco during the Moroccan Wars of the 1860s through 1907. Now, during the Scramble for Africa, there were only a handful of African kingdoms and monarchies that managed to survive all the way up until the early part of the 20th century European superpower. They were carving up Africa at the time, and one of those nations was the Kingdom of Morocco. At the time, Morocco had the most modern navy of all of the independent African states and monarchies that were still in existence in the late 19th century and early 20th century. So in this video, we're going to go over the forgotten steam navy of Morocco during the Scramble for Africa. Now, during the Scramble for Africa, Morocco was engaged in a number of conflicts with Spain and France starting in 1860. These were known as the Spanish-Moroccan Wars and the French-Moroccan Wars, in which both Spain and France were slowly carving up Morocco during both their land and sea invasion of the Kingdom of Morocco. On top of that, Morocco was embroiled in a number of civil conflicts, which many of the rebel groups were armed by foreign European powers, which included France, Spain, and eventually the British. At this time, Morocco only had a handful of allies, namely the United States, Italy, and Colombia, as their major trade partners at this time period. And for a short period of time, Great Britain, although Britain later became somewhat of an enemy during the French-Moroccan Wars later in 1906-1907. Now, during this time period, the Kingdom of Morocco, or the King/Sultan of Morocco, had tried to build a powerful navy that was strong enough to defend the Moroccan coastline against both the French and the Spanish armadas. So we're going to go over the forgotten Moroccan steamships that served in the navy of the Kingdom of Morocco during both the Spanish and French-Moroccan Wars. So let's go into it. Now, the first modern warship in the Moroccan Navy was an auxiliary gunboat/auxiliary cruiser known as the El Hassana. The El Hassana was an auxiliary gunboat that was constructed in Great Britain between the years of 1882 and 1884 and was delivered to the Kingdom of Morocco in 1885. She was constructed by the Craigs Shipbuilding Company based in Middlesbrough, United Kingdom between 1882 and 1884, and she had a displacement of 1,164 tons. Her main armament was one 173mm German-made Krupp Model 1872 main gun, also known as the L-24-6 main gun, which was a deck gun mounted on the front of the ship, and she also had four 11mm Nordenfeld machine guns, although this was later upgraded to four 8mm machine guns later on. Her armor thickness is none, as she was originally built as a civilian vessel that was later rebuilt into a coastal defense gunboat, and she had a speed of 10 knots or 18.5 kilometers per hour or 11.5 miles per hour, and she had a crew of 130. The vessel was powered by a pair of triple expansion steam engines, and this vessel, the El Hassana, was the first modern ship in the Moroccan Navy. All other vessels in the Moroccan Navy at that point were older wooden vessels that were anywhere from 50 to 60 years old. They had been purchased from Britain or a number of neutral nations, but El Hassana was the first modern ship in the Moroccan Navy. Now, after entering service in 1885, she was mostly used as a coastal patrol vessel for the Moroccan Navy all the way up into the year of 1906 during the final war between Morocco and France, where she was later captured. Now, this vessel here wasn't very powerful. It was literally just a civilian vessel that was reconfigured into a coastal defense gunboat. Now, during her service time, she actually captured a number of French, Spanish, and British spy ships that were operating off the coast of Morocco, especially during the time period in which Morocco was going through a number of political revolts and revolutions within the kingdom. And during these revolts, the Spanish, the French, and to an extent the British were secretly supplying weapons and equipment to these rebel groups. Some of these Spanish, French, and British spy vessels were actually captured by the Moroccan Navy ships like the El Hassana during that time period. But ultimately, the Kingdom of Morocco would fall to the French forces in 1906-1907 during the final French-Moroccan Wars. Now, following the defeat of the Kingdom of Morocco in 1907, the El Hassana was later captured by the French and was later stationed in Algiers after being captured by the French Navy, and she was later burned and scuttled by her crew in an area known as Daly's Passage, which is an area somewhere in Algiers on the Algerian coastline. She was burned and scuttled by her crew in order to prevent her from being used by the French any further following the defeat of the Moroccan Navy and the Moroccan forces in the final French-Moroccan War of 1907. Although this was not the final French-Moroccan War, as there was the Rif War later on in the 1920s, but that was more of an armed rebellion than your state versus state conflicts like you saw before in the First and Second French-Moroccan Wars. And that basically ends the history of the Moroccan gunboat, the El Hassana, the first true modern steamship to serve in the Moroccan Navy starting in 1885. And that brings us to the next vessel on the list, or the next Moroccan gunboat slash auxiliary cruiser. And this next vessel here is technically a famous vessel in Moroccan history, and that is the Moroccan gunboat, the Seed El Turki, a German-built auxiliary gunboat from 1894. The Seed El Turki was originally built as a cargo vessel built by the Weser Shipbuilding Company in Bremen, Germany in the year of 1894, and was later sold to Morocco in the same year of 1894, where she was later converted into an auxiliary gunboat slash small cruiser. This vessel here was famously used during the final Spanish-Moroccan War of the late 1890s and early 1900s. The vessel had a displacement of 460 tons. She was powered by a pair of triple expansion steam engines that produced some 1,200 horsepower. She had a main armament of two 76mm British-made Armstrong 9-pounder main guns, which were actually British naval artillery pieces that were sold to Morocco in the same year of 1894. She had no armor as she was originally built as a civilian vessel, and her speed was 14.5 knots, or 26.8 kilometers per hour, or 16.6 miles per hour, and she had a crew of at least 100. The Seed El Turki was the second modern steam vessel to serve in the Moroccan Navy at this time in the late 1800s, or in the mid to late 1890s. She was used during the Spanish-Moroccan Wars of the early 20th century and during the final French-Moroccan War of 1906-1907. During that time period, she served both as a coastal defense vessel, but also as a troop transport vessel for the Moroccan Navy, transporting troops along the coastline during the various civil conflicts and during the slow invasion slash annexation of Morocco by both Spain and France in this time period. Later on, she was beached in a storm in the year of 1907 during the final French invasion of Morocco, and she was technically put out of commission by this storm as she was not able to be used as she was stuck on the beach. Later on, she was salvaged by the French and was put into service with the French occupation navy at least for a few decades until just before World War II. She served all the way up until the year of 1938 in the French occupation navy. On the 4th of February 1938, the Seed El Turki later sank in a storm off the island of Corolla, thus ending the history of the Seed El Turki gunboat of the Moroccan Navy, which served from 1894 until the year of 1938. Almost over 40 years of non-stop service with both the Kingdom of Morocco's Navy and also the Protectorate slash Occupation Navy of Morocco until the year of 1938, just 1 year before the start of World War II. And that brings me to the final vessel on the list, or at least the final ship that had any real history with the Moroccan Navy during the time period of the Spanish and French Moroccan Wars. And that is the Moroccan torpedo cruiser known as the El Bashir. El Bashir was an Italian-built torpedo cruiser that was constructed in Livorno, Italy in the year of 1892. She was originally built for the Italian Navy, but was sold to the Moroccan Navy in the same year of 1892. The vessel had a displacement of 1,200 tons. Her main armament were two 120mm Armstrong Model 1891 main guns, and she also was fitted with four 37mm Italian copies of the French Hotchkiss revolving cannon, or the 37mm autocannon. She also had four 356mm torpedo tubes as her main torpedo armament, thus making her the most powerful and most heavily armed vessel in the Moroccan Navy at the time. Her armor thickness is unknown, and her speed was 18 knots, or 33.3 kilometers per hour, or 20.7 miles per hour, and she had a crew of 150. Al-Bashir was the most modern and most powerful vessel in the Moroccan Navy. In fact, in the same year of 1892, Morocco had actually ordered another cruiser from another country, an unnamed country. This cruiser was never delivered, so the Moroccans settled with the Al-Bashir, and this became the flagship of the Moroccan Navy from 1894 until 1902. Now, the Al-Bashir was a very expensive vessel to maintain. She was designed specifically to compete with Spanish and French torpedo cruisers and unprotected cruisers, as unprotected cruisers were a class of ship used in the Spanish Navy, unprotected cruisers that were operating off the Moroccan coast during the various conflicts between Spain and Morocco. And at first, when the ship entered service, there was some diplomatic issues between Spain, France, and Italy, as these countries did not want the Italians to sell a modern cruiser to Morocco, which they were planning to annex anyway in the coming decade, which is exactly what will happen later on. But the Italians still sold the Al-Bashir to Morocco, and she served in the Moroccan Navy as mostly as a defense cruiser or coastal defense vessel for the Moroccan kingdom. Now, as I mentioned earlier, this ship was pretty expensive to maintain. As a result, Morocco did not have the maintenance facility for this kind of vessel, and as a result, they had to mostly rely on the Italians to maintain the vessel. Whenever the ship needed to be repaired, or any weapons or components needed to be replaced, the ship had to be taken back to Italy in order to have those components replaced or those portions of the ship repaired. As a result, in the year of 1902, the vessel was actually sold to Colombia, Colombia being a major trade partner of Morocco. In Colombian service, she was renamed the Colombian gunboat/cruiser El Marante Lizo, and was later renamed the Cartagena in the 1920s, and she served in the Colombian Navy until she was eventually sold for scrap in the 1930s, just before the start of World War II, and that basically ends the history of the most powerful vessel to serve in the Moroccan Navy, the Moroccan torpedo cruiser Al-Bashir from 1894 until 1902. Now, there were three other vessels that I found at least mentioned by several articles that were printed in the late 19th and early 20th centuries. The next ship on the list is another forgotten Moroccan warship, and this vessel here was another converted former cargo vessel that was converted into a gunboat, and that vessel is the Noor El Bahur, or Noor El Bahir. The Noor El Bahir was a Moroccan gunboat that was originally built as a twin-screw schooner by the Italian Brancini Shipbuilding Company, Italy, in the year of 1898. This vessel, the Noor El Bahir, had a displacement of 457 tons. She was powered by two triple expansion steam engines, and she had a speed of 14 knots. Her main armament is actually not listed, but I'm assuming it must be the same as the Seed El Turkey, which had an armament of two 76mm British-made Armstrong 9-pounder guns. The Noor El Bahir is pretty shrouded in mystery, as there's barely any photographs of the ship at all, and not much history is written on it. All that is written is that she was sold to the government of Morocco in the year of 1898, where she was later reused as a gunboat, serving in that capacity until the year of 1903, where she was later sold to a Turkish tobacco company, and then later sold again to the Turkish Navy in 1906. She was actually still in service with the Ottoman Turkish Navy during the First World War, but her fate afterwards is unknown. And that's really all I have on the history of the Moroccan gunboat, the Noor El Bahir, from the year of 1898, a almost completely forgotten Moroccan warship from the late 19th century. Another warship that was purchased by Morocco in 1907 during the final French invasion of Morocco was the El Sadi. The El Sadi was a Moroccan gunboat that was originally a British iron cargo vessel known as the Sir Robert Peel. Sir Robert Peel was built in the year of 1885 and had a displacement of 376 tons. She was also powered by 2 compound triple expansion steam engines, and her maximum speed was never mentioned, but it must have been around the same as the El Hassana, as she was built at the same shipyard. Later on, again in 1907, she was sold to Morocco and was renamed the Moroccan gunboat El Sidi. El Sidi served in the Moroccan Navy for only 1 year during the French-Moroccan War of 1906-1907 before she was eventually captured by the French Navy. During that time period, she actually attempted to shell both the French forces on land and some rival rebel groups that were also fighting against the Moroccan government at the time. Ultimately, she was captured by the French and was used by the French until the year of 1923, where she was later sold for scrap, thus ending the history of the shortest-lived Moroccan gunboat, the El Sadi, from 1885-1907, a vessel that only served for a single year in the Moroccan Navy during the final French invasion of Morocco in 1906-1907. And finally, that brings me to the last vessels on the list. And these vessels were the Moroccan Coast Guard vessels that were in service from the 1890s until 1906-1907. Morocco actually had a separate navy at the time known as the Moroccan Coast Guard, although they didn't use the term Coast Guard like you would use nowadays. This Coast Guard was mostly made up of German vessels that were constructed between the years of 1890 and 1892, and the largest class of vessels were the El TRIKI class. The El TRIKI class was a class of steam tugboats that were constructed in Germany for the Moroccan Navy in the year of 1892 and the year of 1906. These were 2 vessels. Only one of their names was actually mentioned as the El TRIKI, while the second vessel's name was never documented. These vessels had a displacement of 33 tons, and they were powered by 1 triple expansion steam engine, although their main armament is unknown. Most likely either a small 37mm gun or machine guns, but I am not 100% sure as I can't find any information on the armament of the El TRIKI class of Coast Guard steam tug. From 1892, these vessels served from 1892 and 1906 until they were captured by the French in 1907 at the end of the final French invasion of Morocco in 1906-1907. Afterwards, they would continue to serve in the French-Moroccan Navy or the French-Moroccan government for a number of decades, but disappeared sometime during the Second World War, as there is no more history written on these vessels after the year of 1940, which is the same year that France would fall to Germany during the Second World War, in which Germany invaded both France, Belgium, and the Netherlands in May of 1940, thus ending the history of the El TRIKI class of Moroccan steam Coast Guard tugs from 1892 that were constructed in Germany. The Germans also supplied 4 small Coast Guard steamboats, or steam patrol boats, known as Barkasse 1, Barkasse 2, and Barkasse 3. And these small vessels had a displacement of just 10 tons. They were constructed by the German Jensen and Deminsky Shipbuilding Company in Hamburg, Germany. And these vessels were delivered between the years of 1890 and 1892. Again, they only had a displacement of 10 tons, but they had no listed armament. Most likely the small arms, like rifles and handguns, would be their main armament, or maybe 1 machine gun, but again, none of this was ever mentioned or documented, and these vessels were delivered between 1890 and 1892 and would serve in the Moroccan Navy/Coast Guard until they were eventually captured by the French in 1906-1907 during the final French invasion of Morocco in 1906-1907. And that basically ends it for the Moroccan Coast Guard vessels that were in service with the Moroccan Navy during the years of the French and Spanish-Moroccan Wars of the 1890s through 1906-1907. But there you have it. These were the warships or coastal defense ships of the Moroccan steam navy during the Moroccan Wars of the 1880s through the year of 1907, before Morocco was ultimately annexed and divided by both Spain and France, mostly France, in the same year of 1906-1907, and would later become part of the French and Spanish colonial empire, at least until the Cold War, where Morocco would eventually gain or regain its independence following the collapse of the French and Spanish colonial empires during the first and second half of the Cold War of the 1940s through 1980s. So what do you think of these? Which were your favorite? My favorite is obviously the cruiser Al-Bashir, and it is the most advanced ship to serve in the Moroccan Navy at that time. But what do you all think of these forgotten Moroccan vessels of the Moroccan Wars? Please tell me in the comment section below. And until next time, this was J-Man Time signing off.